What's going on, everybody? My name is Liam, and I pick fights. Welcome to another episode of the show. Guys, I'm very excited to bring you this episode. If you're not aware, we have an insanely stacked card tomorrow night. UFC 259. We have 4 champions. We have 3 title fights. We have a bunch of other main event caliber fights all throughout the card. I'm super fired up and excited about this one, guys. I'm going to be going over on the show today my betting action, particularly focused around 5 fights that I have a lot of interest in for UFC 259 this weekend. So before we get started, if I could ask everybody watching this video, I know I have more people that watch these videos than that are subscribed to my channel, so I would appreciate, if you're watching this, give this channel a subscription and also give this video a like. I hope that you're getting a valuable product every time that I put one of these videos out, and so I'd appreciate if you could do that for me. Now, guys, the other way you can help this show and support this channel is to tell a friend. If you have somebody in your life that likes sports betting or that cares about combat sports, send them my way. I guarantee they won't be disappointed. So I have one other goal to announce, 100 subscribers. I think that's very within reach, and I want to get that by UFC 260 by the end of this month. There should be a lot of great action to break down in the interim, but guys, Stipe, Francis too, I know we're all excited about that, and I think that if I can get to 100 subscribers by then, that should be very easy to do. So thank you guys in advance for your help. Thank you to everybody who's already subscribed. I really appreciate you guys. Now, I know what you came here for, and it wasn't me just rambling on. It's Liam, who do you got in the main event? And if you haven't already seen, I did a breakdown earlier this week where I went over some of my thoughts and my action on the main event, but I'm sharing it with you now, guys. I have 4 units on Israel Adesanya on the money line, and I can break down for you why. So I took him at minus 230, all right? And I have Israel lined at minus 300 on my personal line. That's about a 75% indication. And I think that that's a generous indication, but I think that this is a matchup that really favors Israel, guys. I think Israel's the faster guy. I think he's longer. I think he's going to have a huge speed advantage in this contest. And on top of that, he is a striker fighting another striker that I think is more limited, has fewer tools, is less deceptive than he is. So I think that Israel will be able to confuse Jan Blachowicz. I think he's going to be able to hit him with more volume, certainly. And I honestly believe that the more live KO in this fight is Israel Adesanya by knockout, guys. And I say that because this is a man with 15 knockouts in 20 professional MMA fights. That's way more than Jan Blachowicz, okay? Jan Blachowicz has had 35 pro MMA fights. He has 9 knockouts. So when everybody's telling you about Polish power and this and that, I think that it's important to just contextualize it. In 3 of his last 4 wins, Jan Blachowicz has won by KO or TKO. So I'm not discounting his ability to win by knockout. I'm just saying that's something that came along later in his career, and in some ways against guys who are, I don't want to be disparaging, but guys that are able to be finished. We saw Jan Blachowicz get a finish over Luke Rockhold. Luke Rockhold's been on a career, down spell for quite some time, basically since getting knocked out by Michael Bisping. And so I don't think that that win necessarily, proves that Jan Blachowicz has developed some kind of crazy power. I just think he was going against a glass cannon, as a lot of people like to say about Luke Rockhold. So I think that that's a fair point to bring up. I think another fair point to bring up is that Jan Blachowicz by KO and TKO at plus 400. I'm not saying that that's a bad line. I think that you're getting value there. I think Jan Blachowicz' path to victory in this fight is to catch Izzy. It's to catch him by knockout. It's to put one of those big kicks on his body or on his head, or it's to land one of those clean, marching combinations that Jan tends to favor. I just don't see him having a lot of success in this fight, guys. I think that if he tries to wrestle, he'll find that he's being kept at too great a distance to have effective entries. And I believe that Israel will be controlling this fight from kicking range as long as it stays at kicking range. I think that should they get into extended boxing combinations and, basically inside, if they're in the inside range, I think that it's more of a 65-35 type lean towards Israel Adesanya. But he's dangerous in the pocket. If you watch the Paulo Costa fight, I thought that Israel won a lot of those pocket exchanges with the guy who's pretty good in the pocket. And you can go back further in Israel's career. I mean, that Robert Whittaker fight, guys, he basically fought it entirely in the pocket with Robert Whittaker, a very dangerous guy. He was waiting for the jab of Whittaker so he could counter. and he did so beautifully. He was able to hook off that jab and really send Robert Whittaker spinning a couple times in a short fight. So I believe in Israel Adesanya. I think he's one of the best fighters I've ever seen personally. I think he has some of the best defensive footwork in mixed martial arts today. And I think that Jan Blachowicz is a bit overmatched in this contest. I think he's a talented guy. I think he's a great fighter. And I'm glad that for his legacy, he was able to win the UFC title. I think that's well-deserved. However, guys, I just think he's running into a guy who's on the upswing, who's younger, who's faster, who's more dynamic, who has more ways to win. I think that Israel Adesanya's jiu-jitsu game is underlooked. I think his wrestling is constantly underlooked. The guy's not bad at grappling, and he has not let anybody exploit him in the UFC, and he's gone against pretty talented guys, including Yoel Romero, who wasn't able to get him down for any extended periods. And, Marvin Vettori was able to get Israel Adesanya down. That was a long time ago. And I think that was a big learning lesson for Izzy. Izzy has not stopped staying on the mats. He's now a purple belt under Andre Galvao. That's very, credible jiu-jitsu. So I believe in Israel Adesanya. I think that he is going to have his coronation and become a major star tomorrow night. That's how I feel. If you disagree with me, guys, let me know in the comments section below. I'd love to know where your action's headed. But I've got Israel Adesanya 4 units on the money line at -230, and I think he's got a really good chance of winning that fight. So on to the co-main event, guys. The greatest, the GOAT, Amanda Nunes. That's who we're talking about. And she's fighting Megan Anderson here. This is a 145-pound women's featherweight title fight. And I believe that Amanda Nunes is rightly lined as the favorite. If you guys are seeing the odds for this fight, Amanda Nunes probably anywhere between -1,300 and -1,400. I didn't look right before I started recording, but she's been floating around a bit in that range. And I have no interest in betting on anybody at that price ticket. I'm sure that you guys all feel the same way because nobody's laying the juice on -1,300 unless you're a million. So what are we going to do? Are we going to just pass on this fight? That's always an option, guys. And I think sometimes it's the smartest option that you have on the board. But I'm actually not going to sit this one out. I think that there's a couple props that I really like in this fight. And maybe I'm going to look like an idiot afterwards because Amanda's knocked out a lot of girls. She's won some fights by decision. But I really feel like Amanda Nunes by submission is the ticket here. And I say that because Megan Anderson's very exploitable on the ground. It was not 3 fights ago in the UFC that she was being submitted in the first round by Felicia Spencer, the latest victim of Miss Nunes. And I feel that Amanda has a much better ground game. I feel like her wrestling dwarfs Megan Anderson's wrestling abilities. And I think that this could be a 1 takedown fight. I really could see Amanda Nunes coming across the octagon, getting a takedown, establishing top position, and forcing Megan Anderson into bad positions. Every time I've seen Megan Anderson grapple in the UFC, whether it was against Holly Holm or Felicia Spencer, she looks very uncomfortable. She looks like she's out of her depth. I believe she's a purple belt now in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Amanda is a black belt. She's a high-level black belt. She's been submitting people in the UFC for a long time now. And I think that in this fight, we've seen the improvements that someone like Germaine Durandamy made to her grappling game, and she was able to survive on the ground with Amanda Nunes. But I don't believe that Megan Anderson is the same caliber of fighter on the feet or on the ground of somebody like Germaine Durandamy. I really think that this is a mismatch. I like Amanda Nunes by submission. I have 2 bets on this fight, all right? I have 1 unit, Amanda Nunes by sub at +175. And then I took a flyer on another prop. This one is more specific, but I think it has a decent chance of hitting, and I like the price. So I went 1 unit, Amanda Nunes by sub, round 1, +450. I think that Amanda has every ability to get this fight done early. I don't think that there's any reason to suggest that Amanda Nunes can't do what Felicia Spencer has already done to Megan Anderson, and that's a submission win in the very first round. So that's how I'm attacking the co-main event, guys. I won't keep you around too long on that. I really think it's an open and shut case. Maybe Megan Anderson proves me wrong, comes through as one of the biggest underdogs in UFC history, but I don't see it. I think she's got her hands full with the GOAT, and I think, unfortunately, she's not ready for this kind of opportunity. I think that will be on full display very early on in that fight. Hopefully, Amanda will be cashing me that ticket, submitting her in the very first round. So moving along, guys, I have more action on this card. Like I said, I love this. This is a great night of fights, tons of stellar action. I'm not going to be talking about the men's bantamweight championship fight. It's one of my favorite fights on the card, and I think that it's going to be super exciting. But frankly, guys, that one's hard to read. And I have a personal bias towards Aljamain Sterling. I really love that guy. I love Division III wrestling. I believe that Aljamain Sterling is putting on for a lot of guys that have skills, that work really hard, and that maybe don't get the love and acclaim that some of these D1 and D2 All-Americans, national champs, whatever they are. I just think that D3 wrestling is completely underlooked, despite the fact that there's a lot of diamonds in the rough. There's a lot of very talented wrestlers from the Division III scene that can make an impact in mixed martial arts. So instead of that fight, we're going to be talking about a light heavyweight fight between Aleksander Rakic and Thiago Santos. So we got Thiago Santos coming off of a loss to Glover Teixeira that was really bad, in my opinion. Define really bad. Okay. He had every opportunity to win the fight, and he found a way to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. It was quite interesting. He had Glover Teixeira on Queer Street, completely rocked more than one time in that fight. I believe twice that he dropped him with shots. And Glover Teixeira, I love that guy, man. I believe in Glover Teixeira's skills. I think he's a great wrestler. I think he's very durable, and I think he's got great submission skills. But he was running a clinic on Thiago Santos every time it became a grappling exchange. And that surprised me, man. Thiago Santos is 38 years old. He's been fighting in the UFC for some time now at the middleweight division, just like Israel Adesanya, before moving up to light heavyweight. And I think that Thiago Santos' perception in the UFC is a little inflated given where he's at. Here's what I mean. Thiago Santos gave John Jones such a good fight, and in a lot of people's minds, including in my own, he beat John Jones, right? He actually got a decision victory, depending on how you scored that fight, over John Jones. He's the only athlete to ever compete against John Jones who had an official judge score a contest for him. And so I think that Thiago Santos has been riding that wave of momentum into being the favorite in his last fight when he probably didn't deserve to be. Glover Teixeira had every path to exploit him on the ground. I actually cashed a ticket on Glover Teixeira plus 205 when he was fighting Thiago Santos because I just saw that as a glaring weakness in Santos' game. And I think that given what Aleksander Rakic was able to pull off in his last fight, I'm not sure what suggests that Thiago Santos will be able to prevent Rakic from wrestling him if he so chooses. Now, I think that Rakic has great skills and abilities on the feet, but he's a little hittable, and he can be a little wild at times. Can you not say the same about Thiago Santos? I think that's very fair. Now, I think Thiago is probably the more devastating striker of the two. He probably hits with a little more power, got a little bit more diversity in his kicking game. But I like Aleksander Rakic here as the younger athlete, way younger, 6-year, I believe, age difference here. I think Rakic has a lot of inside tracks to win this fight, guys. I think he does a ton of damage with his leg kicks. I think he will not be out of place at all should this be a ranged kickboxing match. I think that while that style of fight would probably favor Thiago Santos, I don't think it justifies, laying the underdog money on Thiago Santos here, given the question marks. Guys, he's older. He's going against Rakic, who's on the upswing. I think Thiago, it's fair to say, is on the downswing. Say what you will. I thought that he won the fight against John Jones, but it was obviously very close. And 2 judges scored it against him. So he's coming off 2 losses here. It's a big make or break spot for him. There's no doubt about that. I think he's going to come into this fight motivated and prepared and ready to go. But I like Aleksander Rakic. I believe in his upside. I don't think he's going to be a UFC light heavyweight champion, but I think he's going to challenge for that belt at some point. And I just think that at the points that they're at in their career, I like Aleksander Rakic. I think that he has a path to win on the feet, but I think more likely than not, he can take Thiago Santos down and work his top game. Anthony Smith is a black belt, okay? And he got his leg chopped out from underneath him by Aleksander Rakic. And I'm talking not light calf kicks. I'm talking about calf kicks that blast you off your feet, calf kicks from Aleksander Rakic. And then Rakic was able to dominate him, control him on the ground. This is a black belt. And Aleksander Rakic did not look out of place. So I don't see the evidence that Thiago Santos will be able to get up here if he's taken down. I don't see the evidence that he'll be able to stave off submission attempts should they be offered from Rakic. And I don't see the evidence that he is the same offensive dynamo on his feet. Now, granted, he landed on Glover Teixeira, who's 41 years old, with some deal of power, but that's Glover Teixeira, and he's 41. Now he's going against the younger guy, and we expect him to win by thunderous knockout. I don't know that Thiago Santos is being properly evaluated by the betting markets here. In fact, I believe Rakic opened up around minus 250 and has been bet down to minus 150, a full dollar of movement in the other direction. God bless everybody who's on the Thiago Santos side. I wish you luck. I think that there might be some upside on Thiago Santos by KO, but Thiago Santos money line, I don't see it. I wouldn't take that bet. And I like Aleksander Rakic here as the younger, honestly, more complete fighter. That's how I feel. We'll see if it's borne out, but I have 3 units on Aleksander Rakic on the money line at minus 150, and that's how I'm attacking that fight. So, guys, this has been on my betmma.tips for a long time, which is why I always encourage you guys to check that out, betmma.tips/LiamHeslin. When I saw the opening odds for this, I just had a feeling that they were going to move in the direction of Casey Kenney. Casey's way younger. He's gone 12-2 since Dominick Cruz last had a win in the UFC. I'm going to repeat that. Casey Kenney has had 14 fights since Dominick Cruz last got a win in the UFC. So I had a feeling that there was going to be a lot more action that came in on Casey Kenney as time went on. And thankfully, guys, I've been proven right by that. However, I'm not sure how I'm going to approach this fight. Here's what I mean. So I have 2 units right now on Casey Kenney on the money line at minus 110. I debated taking a hedge play on this fight because I think Dominick Cruz has a realistic path to victory. And the more I watched tape, the more I felt it was possible. Dominick Cruz has excellent wrestling entries. He is a double leg machine. He's been able to take down really good guys in the UFC, especially on his reactive double. Because he's moving so much, guys are constantly stepping after him. And it's a lot easier to get a takedown when somebody's stepping towards you, as opposed to when they're backing away. That's a lot of times what wrestlers are dealing with in these mixed martial arts fights when they're trying to get a takedown, is that the other guy's moving constantly away from them. Whereas, if you have somebody like Dominick Cruz who's constantly darting in, out, moving away, he forces somebody to step towards him, and then he takes that reactive shot on an angle. And the angle is what makes it so much easier for him to finish. So I think that Dominick Cruz has a path to win this fight wrestling. I think it's going to be very hard for him to win this fight on the feet. Casey Kenney hits hard. Now, that being said, he doesn't have devastating one-stop hitting power, but he hits hard. He beat the hell out of Haile Alatang. He beat the hell out of a bunch of guys in the UFC, where he's really putting hands and feet on people, and it shows, right? Like leaving marks all over their body, that kind of striking. I think Casey Kenney hits damn hard for a bantamweight. I think that he also has the ability here to put kicks on the legs of Dominick Cruz. We saw Henry Cejudo implement this game plan, take out the legs from underneath Dominick Cruz. And what is he? He's just an average fighter. All right. And I don't mean that to be disparaging to him in any way, but Dominick Cruz is reliant on his footwork. He talks about it all the time. That's what he likes to do. That's what he builds on. That's how he approaches the game of mixed martial arts. But he's in his mid-30s, and he's been dealing with injury woes year after year after year. He's been dealing with a ton of inactivity. And I think that his style is harder to pull off the less practiced you are. And he's talked about he's doing more sparring and stuff in the lead up to this fight. I think that that's a good idea for him. But I also just don't know how well his body's going to hold up to this. He's been doing this for a long time. He's had 25 professional fights, and he's barely been able to make it out there in the last 7-8 years. And I love Dominick Cruz. I support him. I'm cheering for him as a fan. Thank you for all the fights and the entertainment. I just think that Dominick Cruz is in a tough spot here. I don't understand why his management would accept this fight. Frankly, he's a guy who's done a lot for the company. He still works with the company in an announcing capacity. I feel like this matchup was kind of dealt to him from the bottom of the deck. Casey Kenney is on the rise. He's a bantamweight contender today. And I think that Dominick Cruz is a bantamweight champion of old. I don't know that the Dominick Cruz who won the title still exists. I think that we're going to get some diminished version of that this weekend. And I also believe that if it's even a slightly diminished version, Cruz is going to be in a world of trouble. I think that if Dominick Cruz can bring in his full self and his full arsenal of skills to this fight, I think it's very possible that he could pull off a wrestling-heavy decision over Casey Kenney. But I think that this fight is a tricky matchup for Dom. I prefer Casey Kenney on the money line side. I'm not touching it at Casey Kenney minus 140, and I would encourage you to maybe not touch it either. I think that at plus 120, Dominick Cruz is probably the value side. But I do think that this is a fight that I lined about minus 135 to minus 150, almost a 60% indication for Casey Kenney. And so if I could get him at that minus 110 price, I was willing to take a stab, and I was correct in predicting that the market would move this line. So I'm glad I got in on it early. I think that the value on Casey Kenney's gone. Sorry if you missed it, but that's why you got to check out betmma.tips /LiamHeslin earlier. So my last bit of action for you guys on the card. Actually, I shouldn't. I take that back. It's not action yet, but it may become action. So I'm looking at Drew Dober in his fight against Islam Makhachev. Excuse me, taking a quick sip from the odds mug. Shout out Z's MMA. And guys, I don't know about Islam Makhachev at minus 375, minus 380, whatever it's approaching now. It might even be moving further because I know that this line has been moving in the favor of Makhachev. And am I saying that Drew Dober is going to win the fight? No, I don't know that. And I think that Islam Makhachev is the rightful favorite. However, we're not just picking outcomes here, guys. We're also talking about where's the value spot. And I think that the value side in this matchup is clear, and that it's Drew Dober. Plus 330 on Drew Dober. 1-6 of his last 7. Starting to show off a better wrestling game. See back to that Aleksander Hernandez fight. Granted, he was taken down, but he was not held down. He was not controlled. And he was making Aleksander Hernandez more and more tired. He was getting to his double underhook game. He was punishing the body. I think that Drew Dober is very good. I think that he has a lot of skills, and I think he's being underlooked in this matchup. Islam Makhachev was knocked out before in the UFC. He was knocked out by Adriano Martins, who a lot of you are probably saying, who the hell is that guy? It was literally his last win before going on a 4-fight losing streak, which I believe he's still on. Adriano Martins basically lost out his next 2 fights in the UFC, and he's now fighting for M1 Global. So Adriano Martins was the guy who knocked out Islam Makhachev. He did it in the very first round, and he's a southpaw. Drew Dober's a southpaw too. So I think that I'm not drawing, this compare. Well, he got knocked out by one southpaw, so he's obviously going to get knocked out. I'm not saying that he's obviously going to get knocked out, but I'm saying he's been knocked out by one southpaw in the UFC. He's fighting another southpaw tonight, which he hasn't fought many in the interim. And this one hits particularly hard, is willing to throw extended boxing combinations, has a great pressure style, will get in your face the whole time, not give you a second, not give you an inch. I think Islam Makhachev on the ground runs away with it. All right? I think if he's able to get Drew Dober down, he's got a clear advantage, and it's very likely and possible that he could work to a submission victory if he's able to get Drew Dober down consistently. But I think early in this fight, Drew Dober is particularly live. I think that Drew Dober, by knockout in round 1, I wonder what that prop looks like. I would take a look at it if I were you. But if you want to take action on this fight, I would be staying away from the Makhachev side at this point. I think minus 230, 70% indication is fair. I just think that minus 375, approaching minus 400, that's an 80% indication. And we're saying that Drew Dober wins this fight fewer than 1 out of every 5 times. I don't know about that. I think that Islam Makhachev probably has more skills on the ground, but I do not think that he has more skills on the feet. I think it's a very competitive striking matchup. I think Islam Makhachev gets a little overrated sometimes because of his relationship with Khabib and these guys. He doesn't fight like them. All right. He has a good, solid pressure game from top, but Arman Tsarukyan was, borderline out wrestling Islam Makhachev for portions of that fight. Other guys have been able to keep it somewhat competitive with him in the grappling realm. I don't think Islam is like a Khabib type threat. He's a different type of threat. He has more varied tools on the feet. I think he's a little more willing on the feet than Khabib to engage in striking exchanges. But I also think that could be the death of him here. If you get into extended striking exchanges with Drew Dober, your minutes conscious could be numbered. The man hits extremely hard. I think he's getting better. I think he's a very coachable guy. If you listen to the corner in Drew Dober fights, they're telling him what to do. I thought it was beautiful. In the Aleksander Hernandez fight, they tell him, go to the liver. He hits the liver, and you see the reaction. Aleksander Hernandez wanted nothing to do with him once he hit the liver. He unloads with a huge boxing combination. He's standing a little upright. He gets taken down. He gets right back to his feet and forces the action again. Gets right back in his face. Gets taken down again. Total, he was down for 5 to 12 seconds, right? On 2 takedown attempts. Drew Dober is not content to just get taken down and hang out on the ground for the whole fight. I think that these days, Drew Dober understands what it's going to take for him to win, which is, if I am in a bad position, I need to get up and get back to my feet where I like to be, striking. And I think that the idea that he's just going to be out-grappled mercilessly and thrown around by Islam Makhachev, it doesn't play for me. Drew Dober is a former 170 pounder. All right. He's a big guy. He's a strong guy. And I think his wrestling instincts, particularly with the underhook game, they're not bad. So I think the idea that he's just going to easily be out wrestled is false. I don't buy that. I think Islam Makhachev's in for a tough fight here. You know, he kind of went in with a similar price in some of those other fights, like the Arman Tsarukyan fight. Watch that back and tell me he looks like he's minus 400 or minus 380 or whatever he was in that fight. I don't think so. I thought that was highly competitive. Arman Tsarukyan, who at the time, a lot of us were saying, who is this guy, was really giving him a good run. Now, I rate Arman Tsarukyan. I think he's a great fighter. But he's 23 years old. And that was his first shot in the UFC, and he's making himself look excellent against Islam Makhachev. I just think that that's cause for concern. When's the last time you watched a Khabib fight and said, hey, you know what, I really think that Khabib looked a little shaky there. It just didn't happen. So that's in part because Khabib is a dominant style grappler. And Makhachev is much more willing to play on. No. I am sorry about that. Might have had a technical blip for a second. But basically, guys, I'm looking at Drew Dober. I'm considering betting him on the money line, and I'm considering playing Drew Dober inside the distance. I think that he has a path to victory here, and I believe in Drew Dober's talent and abilities. I am not ready to write him off, and I think that the line movement on this fight has been a little disrespectful. I wasn't going to go in when it was in the 200 range. I think as it approaches plus 350, that's where I'm having an eye on it. I think that if it touches plus 350, I'm putting a unit on Drew Dober to win this fight. So thank you guys so much. I appreciate you all for checking out another episode of Liam Picks Fights. I hope that you guys got a ton of value out of this and a lot of entertainment. I'm glad that you have watched this video, but if you don't play my picks, I won't be offended, all right? Let me know in the comment section below, what kind of action are you taking on this fight? Are you following along with me? Are you maybe going a different direction? Are you targeting another fight from the card that I didn't even discuss? Let me know in the comments below. I'm really interested in what you guys have to say. Also, guys, I got a new logo drawn up. It's in the bottom here. Oh, here. I want you guys to let me know what you think. It's under revision. So if you guys have any thoughts, feedback, please let me know. I'd appreciate that too. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate you watching the show. My name is Liam. I pick fights. Come back next Friday. We're going to do it all again. Have the same fun. In the meantime, God bless you all and enjoy the fights.